He's the American legend Hollywood sold you, the buckskin-clad hero, born on a mountaintop, slayer of bears, conqueror of the Alamo. But what if everything you know about Davy Crockett is a lie? Today, we're exposing the 7 deadliest lies that turned Davy Crockett into a cartoon, lies so pervasive even history books fell for them. Lie number 8, that iconic Disney anthem, Born on a Mountaintop in Tennessee. Pure fiction. Crockett's real birthplace was in a rogue republic that didn't even survive. And his heroic battles? Staged. His savage coonskin cap? A Hollywood property. And his final stand at the Alamo? A cover-up so shocking it rewrites the Texas Revolution. But the deadliest lie of all? The one that erased Crockett's greatest rebellion? His war against Andrew Jackson's darkest secrets? Strap in, because by the end of this video, you'll never see Disney or American history the same way again. But before we begin, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel to support our community. David Crockett entered the world on August 17, 1786, close to Limestone. A state park now honors the location, situated in what is modern-day Tennessee. The volunteer state proudly hails Crockett as a local hero and native figure, rightfully so, as he held a seat in Tennessee's legislature before advancing to Congress. Even the Disney show's theme song opens with the line, "Born on a Mountaintop in Tennessee." But 2 inaccuracies stand out. First, Crockett's childhood home, though isolated, wasn't situated atop a mountain. Second, the land where he was born hadn't yet become part of Tennessee. Back then, Scots-Irish residents of the area sought to establish an independent state called Franklin. In 1784, Franklin fell just short of the votes needed for federal recognition. Defying North Carolina, its leaders declared independence, forming a short-lived republic. To simplify a tangled tale, North Carolina reclaimed the territory in 1789, later surrendering it, along with lands farther west, to the federal government. This paved the way for Tennessee's eventual statehood. So, circling back, no, Crockett wasn't born on a mountaintop. And no, it wasn't Tennessee. That said, born in a rugged corner of the rogue state of Franklin before its reintegration and Tennessee's creation doesn't exactly flow smoothly, we'll cut the songwriters some slack. The premiere episode of Disney's Davy Crockett series was named Davy Crockett, Indian Fighter. It dramatized events tied to the Creek War, a conflict from 1813 to 1814 between the Red Stick Creek faction, and the U.S. Disney portrayed Crockett as a central warrior who clashed directly with and overpowered the Red Stick chief, then persuaded him to seek peace. Similarly, the 1960 movie The Alamo, featuring John Wayne as Crockett, has him boast that battling indigenous tribes was his sole military experience prior to Texas. Historically, David Crockett did take pride in his Creek War service, later highlighting his military background during political campaigns. However, Crockett wasn't truly an Indian fighter in this war or other settler-indigenous conflicts. He excelled as a hunter and scout, roles that defined his volunteer duties, tracking game and reconnaissance. He openly acknowledged feeling unfit for battle, and both contemporary and modern accounts describe him as too amiable to thrive in combat. While he emphasized his contributions, he avoided outright lies about his wartime role. Texas Monthly once dubbed David Crockett arguably the first American to profit by marketing his own larger-than-life persona. Picture a time when someone could rise to prominence simply for cultivating their myth. Honestly, that strategy worked wonders for me. While fundamentally truthful, Crockett relished spinning tall tales about his wilderness exploits. When he entered politics, he weaponized his charisma. One could argue he pioneered the archetype of the celebrity-turned-statesman. Outspent by rivals, he leaned on humor, storytelling, and even upstaged a competitor by memorizing and reciting the man's campaign speech before he could deliver it. By the time Crockett arrived in Congress, his fame had skyrocketed. His persona, a rough-hewn, buckskin-wearing backwoodsman, was both celebrated and mocked relentlessly. His cultural zenith came with The Lion of the West, a popular play casting him as Nimrod Wildfire, a wildly exaggerated frontiersman. Crockett attended its Washington performance around 1831, leaning into the caricature even as he privately bristled at how it overshadowed his true self. He longed to be seen as refined, meticulously dressing in formal suits and minding his manners in D.C. social circles. Visitors expecting the rustic legend were baffled to find him in tailored clothing. The Lion of the West played a major role in cementing Crockett's legendary status. Images from the play's posters and his almanac covers immortalized him in public memory as a rugged frontiersman clad in buckskin and sporting a burr cap. Early artwork showed him in a hat made from wildcat fur, but the raccoon skin design eventually became synonymous with his identity. Hunting raccoons was central to Crockett's myth, and if you're humming that tune, you're likely curious about his other prey. While we can't confirm tales from his toddler years, yes, Davy Crockett hunted bears. So many bears, we'll leave it there. Political rivals dismissed him as a trivial coon hunter, though he joked about coaxing raccoons from trees with just a smirk. Yet there's no evidence he ever wore a fur hat prior to the Nimrod Wildfire character. When he commissioned a portrait in frontier attire, he chose a stylish felt hat with a white brim, not a coonskin cap. Stories of Crockett departing for Texas or resting at the Alamo describe him in a coonskin hat. But these narratives surfaced long after his death. If we assume they're untainted by his legend, they imply he only adopted his signature headgear near life's end. In Disney's Davy Crockett Goes to Congress, the second episode depicts Crockett's defeat in Congress and dashed political ambitions after opposing Andrew Jackson's Indian Removal Act. This resistance aligns with history and reflected his convictions. Crockett objected to Congress's failure to monitor funds allocated to Jackson's administration. He even proposed legislation to abolish West Point, viewing it as a pipeline funneling taxpayer money to elites. Regarding the Indian Removal Act, he empathized with indigenous communities facing displacement, warning it would doom them to suffering. Spoiler alert, history proved him correct. Yet this vote wasn't the defining moment of his political career. Though ousted in the 1830 election, he regained his seat in 1832. Re-election didn't bolster his notably sparse record of legislative wins. However, it briefly endeared him to Whig Party leaders who courted him as a contender for the 1836 presidential race. How committed Crockett was to a White House bid remains unclear, but his fiercely independent streak made him a poor fit for the Whigs, or any party. Deserted by Whig allies after losing his congressional seat, again, and pursued by Jackson loyalists, Crockett's political future appeared doomed. On the personal front, he'd grown estranged from his spouse and her relatives. Texas, then a Mexican territory welcoming U.S. settlers, promised renewal. Acquaintances like Sam Houston had already settled there, and its vast hunting grounds and open spaces beckoned. By Crockett's 1836 departure for Texas, friction between Texian colonists and Mexico's central government was simmering and widely recognized. But contrary to Hollywood depictions like the Alamo, 1960, Crockett didn't journey there with combat in mind. Upon arriving that January, many Texians believed the conflict had ended or was a distant concern. Crockett wrote home, confident he'd secure a role drafting the new state's constitution. It wasn't until he soaked in the atmosphere of rebellion that he began boasting of his readiness to take up arms. Tales of the Alamo siege often blend fact, folklore, and fiction. Most accounts correctly note that leadership was jointly led by William Barrett Travis and Jim Bowie, until Bowie's illness sidelined him. Yet many dramatizations cast David Crockett as a quasi-commander, privy to strategic decisions and trusted by both men. In reality, Crockett held no rank, merely a private, and historical records question whether he even led the Tennessee Mounted Volunteers. He arrived in Texas with 3 others, as noted in 3 Roads to the Alamo. After joining the militia en route to San Antonio, he unofficially guided a small band. But William B. Harrison held formal command of their unit. While Crockett's fame preceded him, he was never third in command. A contrasting narrative, like the 2004 Alamo film, imagines him as hesitant and directionless within the fortress. Yet eyewitness testimonies and Travis's letters, cited by historians in documentary features, describe Crockett as a lively morale booster, lifting spirits and reinforcing resolve among defenders. So there you have it, the 7 deadliest lies that turned Davy Crockett from a man into a myth. But here's the twist. Crockett knew the truth. He let Hollywood spin its tales. He let politicians rewrite his past. Why? Because in a young America hungry for heroes, the truth was never as profitable as the legend. But now I want you to decide. Was Davy Crockett a hero, a fraud, or something far stranger, a man trapped in the stories he sold to survive? Drop your verdict in the comments, and if you're brave enough, ask yourself this. What other lies has America buried under its coonskin caps and Alamo martyrs?